Hello there, my friends. I am so glad that you are with me again for another episode. Today, we're going to talk about how to build unshakable trust in yourself. And to be honest, a couple of minutes ago, I reflected to myself that I myself am still in the process, the long process of really building unshakable trust in myself. So I'm going to share everything that I feel I know, but please understand that there's still room in my heart to build even deeper trust in myself. But perhaps that's the point, that we're always striving for that feeling that we cannot be rocked from our position, that we can always trust ourselves no matter what the situation is. I think that's the ideal, isn't it? But I want to set an example that even if you aren't at that point, you can still be striving, you can still be building that trust in yourself, and we can all be learning from our lives every single day. To start off this conversation, I want to reflect with you that I think we all have goals. And if we're really honest with ourselves, we have really big goals, many of which may feel totally unachievable in a way, or like we would need some massive magic trick to happen in order for us to create those goals in real life. But those goals still exist. And I think they exist for a reason. I think they exist because there's something in those goals that is meaningful to us. There's something within ourselves that we understand is potentially available to create that big goal, to make that reality happen in reality, no matter how scared we are, no matter how daunting the odds may be, we still have that goal for ourselves. So let's trust that. That may be tip number one, is if you've got a big goal in your heart, don't doubt yourself. It's there for a reason. It was implanted there by you, by the universe, by society, by your circumstances and your history, by your potential and past experiences, but it's there for a reason. Now that we have that understanding between us, let's now go to how you want to envision that goal happening and how you want to feel. I think that's where the issue of trust comes in, because we don't want to just go to this school and that coach and that newspaper, that podcast, and go willy nilly towards our goals. We really want to have as straight a path as possible. I believe we want to have as easy a path as possible. And in order to do that, we have to really know where we want to end up. We want to know what the destination is. We want to know exactly what our goal is going to be and feel like when we get there. We want to be very specific. We want to be very purposeful about thinking about our visions and having that bright view in front of us. And now back to the issue of trust. You have to trust yourself now in the current day before you reach that goal in order to learn how to build enough trust in yourself to withhold and uphold that big goal when you get there. Let's say you want to get a PhD and you are feeling like, well, there's so many different applicants and maybe they're not going to choose me. And then lo and behold, they actually choose you. How are you going to step into that doctoral program? Are you going to step in feeling really shaky, which would be understandable? Or are you going to feel like this is a major opportunity for me to up level my understanding of myself and my trust in myself? That's actually a true story from my life. When I was admitted into different doctoral programs, I was probably the most unsure of myself, as you can imagine. I really thought I was going to be the student who failed out. That was the level of self-trust that I had at that point. And thankfully, I went through the program, I graduated, and I've done lots of work on myself and my ability to trust myself since. So know that even if you feel like you're super shaky, like you're super anxious, that you haven't had a history of trust with yourself, that there is a wide open space for you to walk into now to build deeper trust in yourself. And I'm going to help you. So, what are some more things that you can do? You can decide that you're going to get out of your own head if you're filled with that, I'm not good enough, I'm going to be the first one to fail, all that negative, frightening, pessimistic chatter, all those fears of not knowing what's going to happen, that fear of uncertainty, that fear of risk, that fear of losing things, money, energy, time, that fear of bringing harm to yourself. All of that, sometimes it's just a vibe. Sometimes those are just passing fears and thoughts that come into our vulnerable hearts and minds. It's okay. But remember, we always want to protect our vibe. We always want to be elevating our energy, elevating how we vibrate in the universe. So, what do you do if you're stuck in that lower, negative, pessimistic vibe? There are lots of things you can do. You can get a coach. You can download a podcast episode. You can listen to some high vibe music. You can get out in nature. You can do breath work. You can do meditation. And you can just plain restore your regular positive outlook and reconnect to the goals that you have. The goals that you have are always going to be orienting you towards a more positive, higher vibe future. So that's always a good technique to rely on and fall back on. So remember, what you desire is going to be like a goalpost for you. It's going to stay relatively steady over time and over circumstances and years in your life. So support all of your efforts and thoughts and dreams of getting there as soon as possible with as little effort as possible. Another thing that I have to share is that I want you to remember your own history. As we grow up, we absorb so many of the world's fears, so many of our parents and other adults' fears about us, that we would be unsafe, that we would make bad decisions, that we would not find our way. And look what happened. We're fine. We survived and we even thrived. We may be bruised a little bit, but we're here. We've survived. We're now listening to a podcast. We're now working on self-development on an even deeper level than we have been in the past. And if you can see that everything you've been through has been either a straight out win or a lesson that you can take for future wins, otherwise known as mistakes. So you have wins and you have lessons you can learn from. If you understand that life is filled with just those two things, you can move really confidently towards any future goal. Again, this all feeds into that process of trusting yourself. If when you make a mistake, you attack yourself, you decide you're too scared to proceed, you decide you're really not worthy of anyone's affection or attention or praise, where is that going to get you? It's going to get you into a deep, dark hole. And of course, we don't want you living there. Temporarily, we understand. But really, this is your big, bright life. You have to come back, bounce back, trust yourself again as quickly as possible. And you can do that. Remember your history. Another thing that I have to share with you, instead of numbering today, I think I'm just saying I have another thing to share. I want you to remember the cost of quitting. Sometimes when we doubt ourselves and when we lose a sense of trust for ourselves, we start thinking about leaving the game, leaving the goal in our dream life instead of seeing it on our vision board and really attacking it and going for it and doing the work that it will take to get there. But I think we oftentimes forget what the cost of quitting is, right? Remember, I said at the top of this episode, you wouldn't have this particular goal if it wasn't super meaningful to you, if it really wasn't meant for you, if it really didn't hold some value to you. So by abandoning it, you're losing so much. You're losing something that you've already been connected to. You've lost a bit of your ideal future. So don't let yourself quit. I would offer that when you stay the course, when you allow yourself to stay the course, you are showing yourself your own resilience and consistency, two very important factors in wellness and success, resilience and consistency. And when you show yourself that you have both, that in itself is a goal achieved. That is really a huge win for yourself. And the more you show yourself resilience and consistency, the more you're going to accumulate that trust. The deeper that trust is going to be, the more unshakable you're going to feel. And along the way, you're also going to accumulate many more wins because you're going to put yourself through the challenge. You're going to get the goal and you're going to count it as a win. You're going to remember to celebrate each win, and you're going to remember how well things turned out when you trust yourself. Now I have a list of 4 things. I have numbers now where you can work as a little bit of homework, areas that you can work on and think about as areas to develop a deeper practice in self trust so that you can really say, I have unshakable trust in myself. Number 1, learn to have patience with the feeling of being frustrated. Frustration is a word that I hear from my clients time and time again. It's really a very frequently used word. And real life, daily life can be frustrating indeed. I've worked with clients for whom their work was really not the thing that was the issue. It wasn't that they weren't talented enough or they didn't have what it takes to do the work, but what they were struggling with was that feeling of frustration that would come in the gap space. I call it the blank space or the gap space. The space between you and the goal is that gap. And if you are low in terms of your ability to tolerate frustration, you're going to be more inclined to quit. You're going to be more inclined to give up. You're going to be more inclined to procrastinate and make things a little more difficult for yourself. So, my tip here is to develop an awareness of when you feel frustrated. What causes you to get triggered and to feel like you can't do it anymore? Understand yourself at a deeper level here, and then build up that muscle of staying the course, even when you're feeling overwhelmed or frustrated. I promise you, this inner work is really valuable. It's not nothing. It's actually the thing that is going to help you to stay the course and do what you say you're going to do. Number 2, tip number 2 is that to develop your ability to hold your focus. Of course, focus is a central executive functioning skill. It's something that we need in our day-to-day life. But when you develop your ability to hold your focus, despite all the distractions that we have in modern day living, the social media, the news, socializing with actual people, and stuff that actually happens in our lives. When we have so much distractions, it can be so valuable to trust your ability to stick with your focus, to pay attention to what you're doing, to follow the plan for the day as you've laid it out at the beginning of the day or the night before. Having great focus is going to ensure that you don't end the day, each day, feeling disappointed with yourself, feeling scared that you didn't meet your goals for the day, and wondering where the time went. I know that that can lead to a cycle of frustration. And then we're back to step number 1 or tip number 1, where you have to build your muscle against the feeling of frustration. So develop your muscle against frustration and then develop your strong ability to have strong and powerful focus. The third tip that I have for you is to allow your emotions to be seen and felt and then to pass by. Sometimes we overdo our emotional life. Sometimes we get very dramatic. Sometimes we get very hysterical and catastrophizing. Sometimes we're just truly panicked. And we need to have patience with ourselves when we feel that heightened emotion. But we also have to understand that our emotions are not supposed to lead us around like a leash leads a dog around. We should not be victims of our emotions. We should use our emotions as cues for how things are going, cues for how we're feeling and reacting, what we might need to pay attention to, what we might need to be alert to. But we should definitely not be pulled around by our dramatic feelings and our panicky feelings because we have bigger places that we want to go. We don't want to end up in a massive panic attack. We want to end up landing exactly where we envisioned our goals to be. When you practice this, tolerating your feelings and allowing them to pass, you will notice how transient they really are. I have heard that each emotion, if you just wait 90 seconds, they will pass. So test this for yourself and see how good you can get at overriding your feelings when you need to. Sometimes we need to perform and show up and face challenges, even when we're feeling lots of shaky emotions, lots of destabilizing emotions, but we can still show up. We are stronger than we believe ourselves to be. I really believe that. So, get good at feelings. Tip number 4 is to develop an ability to perform in spite of intense emotion. I think I've already just covered that in step 3, but I will share with you a little story that I recalled when I was drafting my notes for this episode. It was a story that brings us back to when Christine Lee was in second grade in New York. I was your typical second grader, but I was the kid who was asked to perform a duet with another second grader, happened to be a boy. And that was all hunky dory. Except that when it came to showtime, it was a bright morning. I remember the sun streaming through the auditorium. It was a packed auditorium, a very large auditorium. And I remembered that the other part of the duet, that guy that I was mentioning, that little boy, did not show up. And I was asked if I could do the duet solo. And of course, I was doing it without any benefits of having a rehearsal period. But I said, yes, I could do it. I remember doing it with a kind of powerful energy in my voice because probably I was terrified. So I was terrified, but I was also strong at the same time. And I will always remember that scene because how often does that happen to a person where you're just put to the test? And when we're put to the test, we learn, we develop deeper trust in ourselves. We encode a memory that will last a lifetime. So if you're just about to embark upon something challenging and you're wondering, where can I develop some trust in myself? You've got lots of different memories that I've just shared with you in this episode, lots of little strategies that you can piece together to really build yourself up, but not in some artificial way, in a way that you can use for the rest of your life going forward, for any goal, for any relationship, for any time you have to speak up for yourself, for any time you have to do something, even though there might be some reason to doubt. I really invite you to try these tips out. I trust you deeply, and I'm really excited to hear the results of your efforts. Always feel free to share your wins with me. I'm over on Instagram all the time. I'm at Procrastination Coach there. I'm always in your corner, and I'm always rooting for you to develop deeper trust in yourself. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Believe, Achieve, and Succeed series. I'll be back next week for our last installment. Thanks again. Take care. Bye bye.